administration, Ayanda Dlodlo, announced the conclusion of the long drawn-out public sector wage negotiations and the eventual draft settlement of an increase at between 6 and 7%. However, there are reportedly some unions that have still not signed on the dotted line, delaying the implementation of this agreement. In making the announcement, the minister also proposed structural changes to the system that could help alleviate the ballooning of the wage bill. Minister Ayanda Dlodlo joins us now. Minister, thank you. Very good to have you with us here on Morning Live.
Thank you so much, Leanne. Good morning.
So, save for the South African Democratic Teachers Union and the police union, which we know, as far as we know, have signed this bill, which other parties still have to sign the draft agreement? And of course, I imagine this is having a dire effect on the negotiations.
Well, some of the independent Labour Council members still have to sign. I am loath to say who has signed and who has not signed because the process is still underway. That people have not signed up until now is really not a cause for alarm, for the simple reason that we finalized discussions and negotiations on last week Friday, which then gives unions another 21 days to go back to their members to consult further. So I'm really not that alarmed, although I am a bit worried because we were supposed to have long signed by now. There have been delays from government side with the new changes in the administration, but there's also been delays from Labour side as well. That process really doesn't give me sleepless nights because I think all of us have the interests of the workers at heart and also the interests of our people, in the sense that we all do not want to disrupt service delivery to our people.
Yeah. You know, the reality is that public sector employees are missing out here. They're losing out on this increased payment, and all of this because of sticking points. And I think let's get to the bottom of the sticking points. What are the unions, let's not name them, but what are the unions that do not want to sign say? What are their sticking points? What do they want?
Well, initially the most sticking point was the delinking of spouses on the government employee housing allowance. That has been finalized. We've all agreed on that. Some of the unions are saying that what we've placed on the table in the form of an offer with CPI, projected CPI plus, which for the lower levels amounts to 7%, and the next level would be 6.5%, and the higher level, which is level 11 to 12, would be at 6%. There are unions who are saying that is not enough, that is, we could up this. And truly speaking, even what we have presented is something that we cannot fully afford. But we will be looking at cutting in certain areas to claw back and also to ensure that there are cost containment measures that are put in place for us to be able to afford to even implement the offer that we've placed on the table. We have looked at quite a number of possibilities in this regard.
Yeah. You know, we're looking, obviously, the fact that the workers were hoping to enjoy the benefits of a greater salary at the end of this month, but it seems that this now obviously is over. They're not going to get it this month, but will they, once an agreement is signed, get a back payment? Will this begin from the 1st of April, whenever this agreement is signed?
Well, the agreement is very clear on where payment will be effected. Once you sign on the dotted line, that then means that in the month in which it has been signed, you effect the payment. So the longer it delays, workers obviously are the ones that lose out in this regard. But again, and like I say, I'm almost a perpetual optimist. And in this regard, I really hope that at some point we'll find one another and sign on the dotted line.
You've come up with a couple of suggestions as well for changes in the public sector in terms of size and shape going forward. Can you give us just a little bit of a summary of what you would like to see initiated in your plans?
You know, I'd also like to correct certain things because, you know, we sit in Parliament from day to day listening to the opposition saying that they are forcing President Ramaphosa's hand in ensuring that he reduces the size and form of government. That's not true. The issues around the macro configuration of the state were discussed in the LNG subcommittee of the African National Congress long before the policy conference of the ruling party. We then went on to take that discussion to the policy conference, further adopted in NASREC at our national conference. So the macro configuration of the state, first and foremost, but also of government, has been discussed by the ANC. Resolutions have been taken in that regard. And all that remains for now, because we're hard at work reconfiguring and dealing with the center of government departments, what their responsibilities should and would be, but also looking at broader issues around right sizing of government, because that's where some of the cost containment will be, or the clawback will be realized.
Yeah, and also advisors. That was something that I think was mentioned, one of your suggestions, the reduction of advisors for ministers. How is this suggestion taken up?
Every minister is allowed 2 advisors. One will be political and the other one would be a subject matter advisor. So that is allowed in the ministerial handbook. It's allowed in the Public Service Act. So that is not a problem. For instance, the Public Service Act allows for me to have a panel of advisors on issues relating to the public service. And I just make this as a way of example. If I bring in about 10 people, which the public service would allow for me to do, to advise me on matters relating to administration and the service itself, I can imagine how much money I would be paying from the department's budget, whilst I'm also complaining that there is no money to pay employees or to give employees very high salary raises. So in that regard, I've decided, and I'll speak for myself, I've decided that I'm not going to hire an extra panel of advisors that will help me to reshape and right-size the organization, but I will look internally, both in the Department of Public Service and Administration, but also in relationships that we have carved throughout the years with the academic institutions, with subject matter experts that have left the service, but also subject matter experts within the department who will then be able to advise further on what to do. So basically what I'm saying is, let's all be sensitive to the fact that there is no extra money to bring in extra people that will help us to do our work more effectively. But we can still find that expertise within the organization or through partnerships that we would have developed.
Okay. Minister, just as we wrap this up, I think we need a conclusion from you. You know, public service wage negotiations have always been a sticking point, and they've always, unfortunately, well, most times landed up in major strike action. We saw it happen in 2004, 2007. There were more negotiations. 2010, here we're sitting in 2018. There's 21 days in the period that the unions have to sign this, and many of the unions haven't. So there is impending strike action. What is your next move?
Well, I'm not sure if there's pending strike action, except from the Public Service Association, who already have a certificate. So they can go on strike any minute now. They have been challenged by quite a number of the unions within the bargaining council on the appetite that they have to go and strike. But I've looked at the figures with respect to the number of people that have said we would be ready to go and strike. It doesn't look too good. But I'm not sure whether they are still consulting with members to actually go and strike. But in the current political and economic climate, I'm not sure really if it would be a good thing to do, not whilst our people are complaining about the level and quality of services that are delivered, that honestly a trade union organization that is expected to deliver services to our people would go on strike at this moment. For me, it just would not make political but also socio-economic sense.
Okay, Minister, we have to leave it there. Thank you very, very much for your time and for giving us the department's view on what's been happening with the Public Service and Administration wage discussions and strike action. Is it going to happen? Isn't it? Is this going to be signed? Well, that draft Public Service wage agreement still needs to be signed, and we'll see exactly what happens in the development about that. Let's take